All right. Mic check. I'm good. So I'm Max Duran. CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of our special series association podcast with Skills National. We have been interviewing wonderful people across this country from coast to coast and getting their stories on their Skills Canada journey. Today I have someone coming in from the east coast of New Brunswick. We have Charlie Hanscomb. How's it going, Charlie?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I had a busy day and I still got to go get groceries and make supper, so it never stops.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what are you doing out in New Brunswick? Where are you specifically?
So I am in Upper Kingsclear, which is right outside of Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I go to university in Fredericton at St. Thomas University, and I'm majoring in political science and communications and public policy. So that's sort of my academic background.
Now, where were you born?
I was born in Fredericton, so I've lived here all my life. I lived downtown until I was about 17 or 18, and then we've recently moved right outside the city.
So, as someone who's born, bred, and lived long in the Maritimes, have you gotten the bug to run away? So many stories of people leaving the East Coast for other opportunities, and I love to see someone that stays and supports the community. Why didn't you go? What do you love it? What keeps you there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it in like thinking about my university decisions and what I wanted to do. I think definitely kind of being close to home was something important to me, and also like smaller schools kind of attracted me. So St. Thomas is our class sizes are kind of maxed at 60. So it's a much smaller school, much more personal environment. So that attracted me. And I just really love it here. Being so close to the ocean and all that is amazing.
And you don't mind the winters with the 10 feet of snow and the wind?
I wouldn't. I'm not huge on winter, but I mean, I think it's nice for the first couple months, but then you're at a certain point you kind of want it to be spring.
Mhm.
But I think it's worth it to live here.
Now, leading into the skills season, which is kind of coming up on spring, and now in the next few months, you still got lots of snow out there, or is the weather starting to clear up nice?
Yeah, actually, last week we were kind of getting lower on snow, but we've had a couple snowstorms over the past week, so it's been a bit of some late snow, which is not usual, but I guess that's kind of the reality of living out here.
Yeah, I love it out there. I'm going to be out there in October for our conference called CanWeld, a big welding conference, and I can't wait to be out there. I love the East Coast. It's a beautiful part of the country. Now, let's talk about your background and how we ended up here talking face to face. You know, you were competed in skills in the workplace safety category. Now, that is sort of obtuse trade. You know, if you want to look at the standard trades, you know, yesterday or the previous interview to this, I was interviewing an architect, you know, technician, which is, again, you know, people think of trades, they think of welding and carpentry and plumbing, perhaps not these behind the computer or, you know, in terms of the theoretical side of the workplace. What led you to that specific, you know, learning branch, you know?
hmm Yeah, I think workplace safety is a really interesting trade in the sense that it combines sort of multiple skills, in the sense that you have like research skills and the theoretical stuff that you talked about. And there's also like elements of it like making presentations and recommendations. So I think just kind of those research skills and the theoretical skills were stuff that I was pretty comfortable with in high school, and took a lot of courses, like even courses that I took in culinary arts in high school, they still had a strong theoretical component to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of drive to learn more new things, and also public speaking. I did debate and model United Nations in high school. So public speaking was always sort of a part of kind of who I was and my sort of extracurricular experience.
So, the workplace safety items are a part of every single workplace in the world.
Hmm.
And, obviously in Canada, as a more developed nation, it has become a very much a centerpiece of every trade and work site, workplace. And even the ones that were not deemed as historically dangerous, 30 years ago, you would talk workplace safety. And when you're looking at mining or lumber or agriculture, which are like the low hanging fruit of danger because there's obvious accidents. But in the last 10 years, 5 years, I've seen a real push into the office for ergonomic design, your back, your personal health in terms of exercise and mobility, and also in terms of equity and equality in lowering barriers to allow for demographics that perhaps had been ignored to be a part of it. Now, that's a big spectrum of work.
Hmm.
What attracted you initially to this, and in that spectrum, what appeased you first? What really interested you first in terms of I want to get involved to help with X or fix Y?
Yeah, so I guess kind of what got me into skills, and then I'll kind of go into
Hmm.
the more specifics, was that so my dad is a skilled trades educator, and so he was kind of talking to me about competing in this for our high school, and so I kind of went into it not really having a huge kind of breadth of knowledge about these different areas. But once I started competing and learning about all of them, and I think there's so many different sort of areas, as you pointed out, like accessibility in terms of those more physical workplace safety hazards, and even mental health is a big component of that as well. I think once I started competing and kind of learning more about that, it really drove me to keep competing and keep learning about it.
So, who was the first person that told you? Was it you said your father? You're sitting at home one day and he says, "Look, Charlie, there's this skills thing. You should get
Hmm.
involved." And then how did you pick that category of all categories?
Yeah, so I was actually specifically kind of asked to compete in that one because I think that was kind of the closest aligned to my skill set. Um, so I think it really was from the start. I didn't have a whole lot of information about it, but once I got into it and really enjoyed it and really enjoyed competing and learning more, it kind of went from there over the next 3 years.
Now, what was the draw to that category in your area? Were you competing against many people? Was it a small group, even when you look provincially, that you had to step up against?
So the first year I competed was actually the year that we had the most people. So there was about I think 12 in the field, and I placed second out of those. And I think even because I was in grade 9 at the time, so I was only 14, and I think just that drive for competition. I had grown up playing a bunch of different sports, so I've always been kind of a competitive person. So I think just that the fun of competition drove me to kind of keep competing and keep getting better. In the second and third year I did it, my last year, grade 12, was interrupted by the pandemic, but we had a little bit smaller field, but there's still I think four or five. Um,
Now, in terms of, you know, the you working towards this in the skills group, did you feel on I don't know how to word this. Did you feel like you were in the same community as the other people competing skills, like the hand skills, the practical skills groups? Did the architect and the work safe and the graphic designers feel akin to the welders and the plumbers and the carpenters? Was there a good sense of community in your province for all the trades working?
I think so, yeah. Particularly like when I went to nationals in 2019, sort of the camaraderie of the team, and
Mhm.
especially in something like workplace safety, you get people from very kind of diverse backgrounds, and a lot of it's very sort of interdisciplinary in that way that it kind of applies to every sort of job. So you have a bunch of different people, and there's sort of a community in that as well.
You bring up a neat point there in terms of the interdisciplinary aspects of this. When you look at yourself in terms of how you approach workplace safety and perhaps even where you work now, what's the niche that you've worked in or that is passionate for you within this?
Yeah, I think kind of the connection I've had to workplace safety since I've competed has been really in my focus in public policy. So both of those kind of things have this element of sort of researching a certain topic area, because really there's policy on everything.
Hmm.
And then from that, you have to be super detail oriented and kind of come up with these specific solutions to issues. So a lot of it is like that problem solving skills and making sure that these issues kind of work on a specific level and are not too broad as to be kind of applied in a way that just doesn't work well.
Now, did you have a lot of support from your school and the people around you in terms of mentors, and how much training a week were you looking at in terms of the requirements to compete?
Yeah, so a lot of the training that I had done was so I remember going through a lot of it was self-directed and self-guided. I did kind of obviously WMIS training just for more information building, and then they had practice examples from Skills Canada, New Brunswick from past competitions. So because New Brunswick is kind of a smaller province, at nationals, essentially for workplace safety, they had like a live demonstration that you walk around and try and find the safety hazards. But at the provincial level, we had like posters where you were supposed to identify all the hazards. So they had for that hazard identification, they had a lot of the past posters, so you could train on that. And so a lot of it is knowledge building and also just practicing those skills.
How much of your life is cringe now walking around in the public and seeing unsafe things?
Yeah, I guess in a sense, some of the stuff is like kind of hard to notice if you're not looking for it. But definitely there are things that you can notice with that skill set.
Do you get the urge to step in and say, "Hey, hey, hey, that's not safe," or "That's not the code"?
I would say not really a whole lot of the time. I'm a pretty kind of introverted, non-confrontational person in general. So, um, but yeah, you can certainly notice some things sometimes.
Hmm. Now, walk me through the 2019 trip. You said you got
Hmm.
second in your provincials. That means that you're probably on a ticket as a backup, or the person in first
Hmm.
wasn't able to
Hmm.
attend. So you're off to nationals 2019. Where was 2019 in Halifax?
Yeah.
So that's just
Um,
down the road for you.
Yeah, totally. So I placed second in 2017 and then placed
Right.
first in 2019
I see. Okay.
in the at provincials. Yeah. So I think it was a really awesome experience and just something like I didn't know what to expect going into the national exhibition. And I think really even just the day before and in between times that our competition had sort of events, because we for the last day, especially when we had to do our presentations, we didn't have to be there the whole time. So just walking around the venue and seeing all the different skills was really awesome, and just it was a great experience in that sense, and just seeing all the different variety of skills that there are kind of housed in this national competition.
And you said you won gold at nationals.
Provincials, sorry.
Oh, provincials. And how'd you do in nationals then?
I didn't place very highly at nationals, but I think sort of the experience of it, and that was kind of my biggest thing was just to take in that experience and value that. Um, and I definitely worked my hardest to go to nationals
Yeah.
and compete. But obviously, everybody who does it at nationals is such a great competitor at their trade and skill. But yeah, it was an awesome experience nonetheless, and just a great sort of yeah.
Yeah. Just a great place to be. Now, walk me through what the competition was at nationals. You show up, and if somebody from the outside, a bystander, because for the people that don't know, you can watch all this stuff go down,
Mhm.
and you watch the people sweat. Like So you're walking in to do your I guess practical portion of your competition.
Mhm.
What is it that I would watch you be doing, and what are you looking for?
Yeah, so the first part of our competition was essentially they had this within our competition area, they had this live demonstration setup of essentially like a workplace scenario that they built with mannequins, and it was pretty elaborate and really interesting. And essentially, what we would have to do is walk around the demo, and I think we had an hour and a half or 2 hours to essentially fill out our hazard identification sheet, which had all the hazards, so defining different types and um, essentially what it was and what injury could be caused. And then from that, we sort of that was one part of the competition, and then the other part, which we did, was more research intensive. So we had a specific scenario. I think mine was specifically around asbestos, where we had to research about the hazard, come up with a solution for this particular scenario, and essentially come up with a safety plan to create a work safe environment to deal with this hazard, and then present that to the panel of 3 or 4 judges out of our committee on the second day.
So it's really about having a keen eye and understanding the legislation to know
Hmm.
what falls in and what doesn't fall. That's something I've learned throughout my years of safety training is, some safety stuff is very obvious. Like,
Hmm.
oh, look, that extension cord is bare and there's wires making sparks. Unsafe. But then there's a lot of stuff that's, on the line. Is this safe or not? And sometimes it's down to policy and legislation. It can be here, it might not be there, right? Uh, Is there, when you were doing this, was there a code or legislation that was specific to what you were looking at? Like, for example, you were in Nova Scotia, they're saying you're going to be using the provincial legislation of Nova Scotia, or were you under like a federal guideline?
To the best of my memory, I think the asbestos guidelines are kind of set out by like that's a piece of federal legislation,
Hmm.
and that was kind of how it was managed, and how a lot of it was essentially how to control the particulate of asbestos, which are a carcinogen. So how do you protect the workers who are doing that removal, and how do you protect the space so that it's safe to live in once you come back, and there's certain testing requirements around that, and just air quality tests to make sure that it's a safe environment both for the workers as well as the people living in that home or office space, or whatever it may be.
That's super interesting. Now, for the people that are listening, what kind of work are you looking at getting this? If someone's listening and thinking, this sounds really interesting, I'd love to be that person. Are there people hiring for these gigs? Like I know the answer, but from your own perspective, how do you feel about the work scenarios?
Yeah, so certainly connected to workplace safety, there's a whole bunch of avenues that you can go down, like obviously like safety inspection uh, jobs. Particularly, I'm kind of interested in policy analysis and being a policy analyst. So essentially, that's another sort of avenue connected to it. But I think there's kind of countless
Hmm.
possibilities, because I mentioned that it's kind of interdisciplinary in this way. So you can take your background and work in the context of workplace safety in many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, even my brother is he learned all his workplace safety as a scaffolder, and now he teaches for a safety organization
Hmm.
as an instructor. Like, I mean, there's so many avenues available within the safety realm. Now, for yourself, you're done the competition.
Hmm.
You feel good. It's been a good journey, but something held you back. Something held you there. Why? What was it that made you stay with skills after your personal journey was over? You decided to stay in another capacity. What was it, and what do you do now?
Yeah. So I think uh, what kind of led me to stay with skills is really that I think that the skilled trades, in whatever form it may be, are super important to advocate for, and something that is super necessary, especially in our society where we're going to need thousands, if not millions, of skilled workers over the next coming decades. I think that's super important to advocate for and kind of lift up as something that's really awesome to do as a career. And so currently I'm on the National Alumni Committee as a representative for New Brunswick. So sort of my position is a volunteer position which advocates for skilled trades within New Brunswick. So that's what I've kind of done in skills since I've competed.
And you have the background for one of the trades that are competed in that are not as well known. So that's also almost double valuable, because you said when you got into this, it was almost self-directed, a lot of trying to just figure out what happened in the past. But you deciding to stay on will now be able to mentor people looking to get into your discipline, right? And is that important to you, being a mentor, or the mentorship process within apprenticeships and trades?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really making the trades and skilled trades as accessible as possible, and having this experience to mentor people is an awesome experience, and just kind of highlighting how great Skills Canada can be, and how there's sort of like an avenue for everybody in the skilled trades is really something that's important to me, and I think important with this position.
Now, what was your favorite moment, from 14 years old till now?
Mhm.
You've been up and down a bunch of roads, lots of wins, probably some losses. What would you say really stands out, even now as an NAC member? What do what's that moment that you're like, this keeps my passion alive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think um, really uh, winning the provincial competition in 2019 for multiple ways, just because obviously it's great because I was able to go compete at nationals in Halifax, but it also felt great with the 3 years of work I had put in towards that, and sort of my perseverance in to keep competing and keep getting better at my skill area was really rewarding as well. So I think that was part of it, and I think really the whole experience of going to nationals and just having that experience and experiencing that new kind of environment and seeing all these different trades was really great as well.
How do you feel working on the NAC now? Getting to work with people across Canada from all different sectors, all different trades, all different backgrounds. You get to be a part of a really unique group of wonderful individuals. How's that work? Like, is it a lot of work? Is it okay? Is it fun?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really great sort of collaborative group. I'm relatively new to the role as of last fall, but I think really advocacy for the trades. We can help each other a lot by understanding what has worked in each province, what hasn't worked in terms of connecting with alumni, and having people more encouraged to be a part of the trades. So I think that collaborative element, and everybody's so passionate about skilled trades, so that's really awesome. Um, and yeah, that it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. Now, what does the future hold for you? You said you're studying poli sci and policy. You're doing that
Mhm,
at the university. Where is the path leading you now?
mhm. I think ideally, so I'm in my third year of university. I think what I would like to pursue is a master's degree in policy administration or public policy, and I'm working in policy analysis. And I'm not sure exactly where I want to go do that yet, but I think that's part of the journey. But that's sort of what I would like to do to continue on this path, kind of public policy.
That's awesome. So, to I got questions for you now as a safety person.
Hmm.
If I put you up on a stage and said, "Okay, Charlie, you're the workplace safety guru that I've hired to come in to speak. Could you give me a top 5 things that I should watch at the workplace for safety?" Or is that just like not possible? There's just too many.
I think that it might be hard to sort of to rank in that way. I think that there's
Mhm.
definitely in particular like the things that you talked about as like that people don't think about. So accessibility in the workplace, like just thinking about those minute things, even like not even in the realm of ergonomics, but is your workplace wheelchair accessible, or something like that, so you can have a more diverse group of people working in your office, or mental health, and how that can help people to succeed at their best in the job. And really, I think among other things, it's important to kind of look at these little details, and even whether it be physical or ergonomic or accessibility, I think they're all sort of equally important to emphasize, and important to consider kind of in creating the best workplace you can.
And I love that process. I've been through that process with a number of companies now, and it always really exposes things that you don't really think about, or perhaps you have just ignored and been like, "Oh, this is just part of the job," or "This is just part of how it is. Don't
Hmm.
worry about it." You know, table height was one that blew me away. How important table height is for people, short versus tall, long arm versus short arm. When you get to a manufacturing facility and you got someone producing thousands of parts a day, having them be comfortable is insanely important, because they're
Hmm.
going to get hurt. And then what, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly important, and even in terms of something like thinking about employee retention. So if you want to
Hmm.
build a collaborative community, or a consistent community for the workplace, that's considering small things like that is incredibly important, because you want people to want to be at their workplace and like their job.
Like their job. Yeah, it's kind of important, especially, um, the world where it's going now, which I think is a good thing, for people to have an expectation that work not be terrible. Like,
Hmm.
we should hopefully all not be scared to go to work and not be totally stressed out about it. Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely super important.
All right, so let's draw a couple markers in time here. You're 14 years old, you're just starting to
Mhm.
get into this skills game, and now, post skills, you're in university and you're following your path. What were some of the skills that you had to gain as an early young person that really had you leaned on through your journey? What were one or two skills that you really found were critical for your success?
Yeah, I definitely think one big thing, especially uh, going into the whole university process and going through the pandemic, was sort of resiliency and adaptability. Just being able to kind of control what you can control, and then beyond that, sort of there are things that you can't control in life, but just being able to do the best at what you can do, I think is a big one for me. And I think just finding uh, that sense of community, whether it's with other classmates or with other competitors, was just a really important thing. So I think those are two big things that I've sort of learned throughout this process that have really helped me to sort of be who I am today.
Awesome. And to wrap up the interview, I got a question for you. If you could go back in time and find young self, or even, you're standing in front of a classroom of grade nines and tens, what advice would you give them in terms of motivation to have them move forward and succeed, not just personally, but also perhaps down the skills journey like yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest piece of advice would just be sort of don't be afraid to try a bunch of different things. Like for sure in high school, I tried a bunch of like taking culinary courses or doing
Mhm.
debate. Like those are very different skill sets. And I think they're definitely helpful to develop. And I think just like not putting that pressure on yourself to have your life all figured out. And just taking be kindness to yourself, and being willing to try new things is kind of a big piece of advice.
That's sage advice from a young man. I've changed careers many times in my life, and it always works out all right. It's about learning and finding your own path, and paths aren't meant to be straight roads. So, I appreciate that. Well, Charlie, thank you very much for coming on the show. Um, do you have any shout outs or any messages you wish to say to anybody?
I guess I would like to shout out my dad and my parents in particular, who supported me through my skills journey, And yeah, just shouting out everybody who works so hard to advocate for skilled trades in Canada and around the world.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Charlie. And for all the people that have been following along, make sure you check all the episodes out. There's a whole series that we're doing with Skills Canada, and they're fantastic. So download them, share them, like them, put them all over the place, and make sure you tell your friends and let people know about Skills and the magnificent work that we're doing. We're going to be in Winnipeg for nationals. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a ton of fun. And I'll see you there, Charlie.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And everyone, stay tuned for the next episode. So keep downloading, and I'll see you there. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the show.